Hello and welcome to this edition of Take 5 with Tony. Today I want to talk about farmers, rural folks, and Ferguson. For the last 20 years, most of what we've grown, we've sold to folks that we see in person on Tuesday or Saturday at the Abingdon Farmers Market. And that connection has made the simple sale of a head of cauliflower or a dozen ears of corn somehow a little different. When you work on a small farm like this, you work hard and you develop a love-hate relationship with the whole thing. And so not only do you want to sell tasty, nutritious produce, but you actually hope that selling your stuff to folks will somehow impact them. It's kind of ridiculous, I know, but it's true. Now, we have sold primarily directly to consumers, but we've also been part of a growers network, Appalachian Harvest, that sells to supermarkets in Atlanta, Richmond, Baltimore, and Washington. Thousands and thousands of pounds of our produce have ended up on supermarket shelves in those cities. And the people buying it, they've seen signs that talk to them about who's growing it and how. And so maybe some of those folks felt like they knew their farmer. I hope so. But we didn't know them. We weren't connected. Not at all. Which brings me to Ferguson, and Baltimore, and Cleveland, and the terrible state of race relations and racial justice in our country today. For more than 2 generations, we've been steadily disconnecting, delocalizing, not only in our food system, but in most of our economic transactions, and really in most of how we relate to one another. So much of our lives is now conducted at a great distance from one another, especially people very different from us. In rural areas, people like me, especially white folks in rural areas, they feel terribly disconnected to issues of criminal justice, to the racial violence and racial injustice that's so widespread in towns and cities. Most of us certainly know that over 2 million people are in jail. We've heard the studies that say that black folks are more than twice as likely to go to jail for the same crime committed by a white person, and before that, they're far more likely to be arrested or to be stopped and questioned in the first place. We know, too, of the study that came out in 2012 that showed that for kids aged 15 to 19, black youth were nearly 20 times as likely to be shot by police as white youth. We know all this, and we do nothing. And that is nothing less than scandalous. At the same time, it may be a not surprising outcome, at least in part, of these disconnections, of this fracturing, this estrangement between us and others who are different from us. I mean, look at it. We buy tomatoes in the supermarket for $1.69 a pound. They were picked in the Florida heat by migrant workers for 1 or 2 cents per pound. We light and heat and cool our homes from what? Coal that came from the top of a mountain, gas that came from a fracked well in western Pennsylvania, all very distant from us. And so, too, our racism is not so overt, but it's more racism of a distance, racism of indifference that allows us to put up with and tolerate things that are simply intolerable. Farmers sell their food a lot of times to people they don't know and won't see, and yet we want them to feel connected to us, to connected to our work and to our land. And in fact, we need them to feel connected so that they don't just participate in an anonymous food system that is very willing to discard us. If we know that, why do we tolerate a criminal justice system, a society that discards so many people of color, including probably some of our customers? Maybe it's time that farmers out of rural communities begin to bridge this and make these reconnections. I don't know how to do it. I don't have a plan. But it seems to me it starts with at least 2 basic recognitions. First, that our kids make mistakes too. Our friends and neighbors do, but so infrequently with lethal consequences. And secondly, that farmers of all people understand the consequences of disconnection and of indifference. Another farmer loses his land to the bank. Another black kid is shot dead by a cop in the city streets. It's 2 different worlds. But maybe that's part of the problem. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.